I just wanted to make a quick, looking at some wording of the report recently uploaded to the Thirlwell inquiry. Reports, there's a few more bits of evidence, but more's coming out. Thanks to Black Scarable as well for mentioning the Sun about them reporting that they were thinking of, actually going into the really looking at Breary and Jaram for bullying, basically, and going and thinking about a disciplinary process with them. And it even went as far as saying, thinking about how to manage the consultants out after the way they treated Lucy. I can't find that wording in the actual documents, the manage out wording, but it does mention about the bullying and stuff, and we already knew about that. But it's the fact that it's now been uploaded to, but there's some wording here uploaded to the Thirlwell inquiry. This report by Christopher Green. I just want to read something because this wording, I'm going to read it and then I'll try and put it on the screen as well in a minute. But it says here, he's saying, I conclude that the decision to redeploy Lucy was fundamentally due to the impracticality of supervising her on the neonatal unit, but reinforced by pressure applied by the consultants to the trust. So the trust executive team and trust board, in the absence of firm objective evidence to explain or dispel the concerns of the consultants, found themselves in a situation where it is conceivable, if unthinkable, that to leave Lucy Letby on the neonatal unit may have exposed patients to harm. Now, that wording, I'm just going to read that again because I think it's meant to be confusing because they're trying to cover themselves. So they've put the trust executive team and trust board, in the absence of firm objective evidence to explain or dispel the concerns of the consultants, found themselves in a situation where it is conceivable, if unthinkable, that to leave Lucy Letby on the neonatal unit may have exposed patients to harm. So it's conceivable, if unthinkable, right? So it's unthinkable, but it's conceivable. So you conceive it, but it's not thinkable. Those two don't match, do they, really? So it's conceivable that to leave Lucy Letby on the unit may have exposed patients to harm. It's unthinkable, though, that to leave her on the neonatal unit may have exposed patients to harm. It's unthinkable. So are they saying, oh, it's emotionally unthinkable? No, they put it's unthinkable that Lucy Letby could be causing harm, but it's the trust executive team found it conceivable but unthinkable. So there you are. We've got a bit of, what should we call it, cognitive dissonance. That's good, isn't it? So they can conceive that it's impossible that Lucy they couldn't conceive that Lucy could harm, but at the same time, they could conceive it, right? So it was conceivable, but it was unthinkable. Those two words, I mean, they don't mean exactly the same thing, but they're interchangeable. So they were saying they're in a catch-22 position. That's what they're saying. But remember, these documents are about how they legally cover themselves. So we can all talk about being in a catch-22 situation, but remember, these people are always thinking about what's going to come down the line, whether people are going to sue them, etc., etc. So this wording, I think, was deliberate, right? Because I remember reading emails at the time when they talked about how they could cover themselves if they had to redeploy Lucy, and how they could make it look as if they had reasonable suspicion, but at the same time not be accusing her, because it was covering their own situation, the management, rather than, and that's what their lawyers advised them to do. Because I found emails a long, long time ago which showed what they were being advised to do. So anyway, but ultimately this report supports Lucy, right? We know that. And they've gone on to say, however, I found no evidence to support that this did not occur. Right, so conflicting statements were provided by SB and RJ, Breary and Jaram, who both deny that this unwritten threat took place. I want to go back a minute. Hang on. Right. I find on the balance of probability that the consultants as a group, and specifically Breary and Durham, asserted that they would call the police if Lucy Letby was not removed from the unit, and that this was something the executive board wished to avoid in the interest of both Lucy and the trust. Right. So in the interest of Lucy, they didn't want the police called. Well, that's not what you do with a murder, is it? When you've got babies on the unit, your first call is the babies, right? But in the interest of Lucy, they didn't want the police called. So the babies didn't matter at all. So we know, come on, there's no question that they thought, right, okay, Lucy was any risk, right? So, and to go on this, in the interest of both Lucy and the trust, conflicting statements were provided by Breary and Durham, who both denied that this unwritten threat took place. In other words, so they were denying that there was a threat to call the police, right? However, I found no evidence to support that this did not occur. I found no evidence to support this did not occur. Not great wording. And furthermore, no reasonable explanation for why it would be suggested had it not. Right, okay, so what he's saying is he believes that they were threatening to call the police, but he hasn't got any written evidence on, and now the consultants are denying it. Well, we know they did go on to the police, didn't we? So they very likely were threatening it. Right. Additionally, there were executive concerns that by leaving her on the unit during this review process may have exposed her to the suggestion that foul play was a component in the deaths on the NNU, and that this had been linked to her. Given the subsequent rumours highlighted by the witnesses, this seems a likely possibility. I conclude that Lucy Letby was redeployed from the NNU on a temporary basis to ensure patient safety and to protect her from the alleged comments of the consultants. Well, he said to ensure patient safety, but nothing he said prior to that indicates anything about Lucy Letby endangering patients. So what he's saying is rumours, okay? So to give in to rumours, that's what he said. So ensure patient safety on the basis of a rumour with no evidence to back it up. But it seems unlikely, and to protect her from the alleged comments of the consultants, which was the real reason their witch hunt against her. So, but you know, that wording again is problematic, and I'm just going to, I don't know if it's going to show up on here, but that's, I'll just see if I can get it up to show it. I can't, for some reason, I can't turn this around at the moment. But anyway, that's what I mean. If you look it up, and it's on page 17 of the latest, one of the latest reports, updated on the evidence section of the Thirlwell inquiry. It's the final report from Dr. Christopher Green to Annette Weatherly, and the date of the report is 22nd of the 11th, 16. And it was uploaded on the 8th of April, 26. It's pages 208 to 226 of Letby grievance file, including final grievance report by Dr. Christopher Green. I'd like to find the notes which say that Lucy was managed out. So if anyone's found them, please let me know. Although I've seen it reported in the Sun, I haven't found the actual notes. They're supposed to be on the Thirlwell inquiry, that say that they were thinking of managing the consultants out, probably of the ward or the whole hospital. Because that's really, but what I really wanted to say was, this is, these sort of things being withheld, if that is there, that they were, well, certainly that they were bullying her and all these sort of things being withheld, is they do have a duty to, the law that covers it is CIPA, the Criminal Investigations Procedures Act 1996, off the top of my head, is a law which governs disclosures and stuff like that in criminal cases. And also you've got the Criminal Procedure Rules guidance on disclosure, okay? So although the NHS can withhold a lot, because they can do like patient confidentiality, blah, 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 blah. So for prosecution witnesses, like management and the consultants, in my mind, they should have disclosed stuff like this, right? Anything that could have helped Lucy in her defence. And really they should, okay? But there's a lot of grey areas there under the law. But if they knew, for instance, that they were planning on managing the consultants out because of the bullying of Lucy, and that's why the real reason that they've gone to police and all this sort of thing. They knew that could help Lucy. Without a shadow of a doubt, they knew that would help Lucy's defence, and they withheld it. That is potentially contempt of court from both, and by both Gyra and Breary, again, contempt of court for withholding this kind of information, because they knew that they were under investigation for bullying and all this sort of stuff. And also the management, and that what they were considering with Gyra and Breary and the disciplinary issues, they knew about this. So again, it's potential contempt of court, but there's all these grey areas where they can go, yeah, but they can't really deny that they knew that would help Lucy's defence. They're not supposed to withhold things. But, they don't have to disclose things unless the defence lawyer asks for the disclosure, right? So the defence lawyer might say, I want this or that document to close. The problem is when the defence don't know what documents there are. So how can they ask for documents they don't know are there? This is the problem. And that's where the NHS play these games, right? Because they can sort of, confidentiality. And if they're not specifically asked for something, they know damn well hold it back. But on the other hand, if they know that something will help in someone's defence, theoretically, that is still against the rules. They really should be disclosing because they know that would help somebody who's been accused of murder. So they asked potentially in contempt of court for withholding stuff. But again, what's the real... I mean, I don't know. The things that the management have been arrested for have been entirely unrelated to do with allowing murderers to run around the hospital, which we know is ridiculous, right? But whether they will be... And I don't think we should... I mean, I don't give the managers any excuses. They stuck up for Lucy only insofar as they could protect their own backs while they were doing it, right? The minute it got into problems with their hospital or their management or anything else, or going against the advice of their lawyers, they withdrew and they threw Lucy to the wolves. So sorry, I don't have any time for the management. I do feel like sometimes people like what's her name? Her name's gone out of my head now. Karen Reese. I sometimes, because I know she did really stick up for Lucy, and then, but ultimately in the end they didn't stand up in court and stick up for her, did they? And they all let her go to the wolves. And so we know the real ones, but Jury Joram, Gibbs to a lesser extent, Joey Evans, all these that we've been pointing the finger at, but really, those who stand by and do nothing is sometimes the greatest evil, to just stand by and do nothing. Breary and Joram had emotional shit in that game. They were battered wives and whatever they thought they were. You could see they being whatever. I'm not going to use, the narcissistic type of poor me shit, the emotional responses. But the management, it was cold and clinical decision on their part to just let Lucy go to the wolves, really. So who's worse there? I don't know anymore. I don't know who's the worst. The whole lot of it is disgusting, quite frankly, and it's enough to make you... It irritates me. It makes me very angry, miscarriages of justice, and especially to this extent. People, a lot of people don't care, but what they don't realise is it could be them next week. It could be their mother, their son, their daughter, who ends up in court for something they didn't do and goes down for life. It could happen to anyone, It's really, really disgusting. They've effectively given her a fate look worse than death, really. That's what they've done. In the long run, depending on how long she's locked up for the crime she's been accused of. And anyway, but yeah, I'll leave it there. And so I put another longer video out about, just wrote another article on Substack, but I've done a much longer video about that. It's about different stuff. Yeah, okay, bye.